Hey, hi everyone. I hope
Hi,
I'm
ma'am. Hi,
audible
ma'am.
and this.
Hello,
Hi,
ma'am.
hi.
Yeah, ma'am.
I hope
Everything
I'm
is
audible.
working super great.
Okay, okay. This is my first experience on AirMeet,
Yeah, ma'am. We
but
can hear you and see you very well.
okay, okay, cool. So this is my first experience with AirMeet, but so far so good. I'm liking this platform, and I hope you like my slides because I'm here to like interact with you, answer any questions that are there on top of your mind. So feel free to raise your hands, ask any questions, or you could like store it till the end, and we could take all of these questions at the end of the session. I hope even if you all are virtually listening to me, you haven't just started doing something else while you just joined this session and are listening to me. There's no way in virtual sessions I could understand if you're enjoying or not, but feel free to make the most out of this chat section. Uh, you know, if you're not relating to what I am trying to say, it's honestly okay to mention that in the chat section. If you are liking it, also post that in the chat section so that I'll be able to understand. That's a direct way to get a feedback in an online session. Okay, thank you so much, Raurkela team, for the warm introduction and having me today. Without further ado, I'd like to begin with talking to you about building for next billion users. So, on, I hope you all have ideas on what you'd like to build during this hackathon. Are you all sure about what product that you'd like to build during this hackathon? Or how many of you are wondering what product can you build by the end of this hackathon? How's it going so far? Okay, I can see remarkable reactions. So I hope you all have your ideas ready. If not, or maybe you have your ideas ready, but I'm going to challenge you to think again because while you're trying to solve interesting problems, it's important to understand if the problem is faced by many users or are we consciously biased about our own problem statements. Is that problem only limited to a group of people or is that solution going to be usable for many people? And that's why I chose the topic building for the next billion users. Give me one sec. I'll just present my screen. Uh, okay. I hope you can see my screen. Cool. So, like they mentioned, I'm a community manager. So what I do is I manage the GDG program in India. I hope you've heard about it. Just like DSCs, GDGs are about professional. It's a professional network of developers who are interested in open source and Google technologies who come together over different events and meetups, discuss about different Google technologies, learn them together and try to build interesting solutions just like you do through different forums. So that's a small introduction about myself. Before this, I was managing the Explore ML program in India. So Explore ML was a program which was actually designed for university students to get started with machine learning. And before joining Google, I was working with multiple startups. I have experience in product development, product marketing, and mostly I have focus on building mobile and web applications along with machine learning. So these are my core areas of topic. And I have worked on a research project involved with machine learning during my final year with IIT Bombay. So that's a small background about myself. So this will help you understand what type of questions you could ask me maybe towards the end of this session. So yeah, once again, hello everyone, and I'm thankful to be here. And yeah, I really wanted to thank all of you who made some time to join this session today, and all of you who put a lot of efforts to manage this session today. Well, here comes the first question to all of you. What do you see on the screen? What is this picture? What does this picture say? Recall those days when spaces were as crowded as this. It's CST. Okay. Forget COVID. Okay. What else? Crowd spaces. Okay. Cool. Nice answers. Mumbai local railways. Okay. Somewhere nearby, close by. So, this was Mumbai railway station, obviously before the COVID times, and maybe today as well, after the locals have started, it's as crowded as this. And the population of Mumbai, which is a rough estimate, is 2.5 crores. So 2.5 crore people live in Mumbai. And what does this picture tell you? Any guesses? So, if you recall the railway station picture, so much. Oh, my screen is not visible. I'm so sorry about it. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Okay. So what do you see in this picture? Any guesses? Unloading heat, old ways of transportation. Okay, good guesses. Keep them coming. Unloading trash. Okay, so I was just wondering the life before COVID, everything was so crowded, things were, so busy. Every corner of the city was like, something or the other was happening. And then I was just wondering how was life when so many things were not there? Like, forget the COVID times when everything came to a halt. But think about those times when, everything suddenly had to change because uh, basically, how things started evolving. So, how did we come up with the ideas of railways platforms? So I was just mentioning there are 2.5 crore people in Mumbai. Every corner, so many things were happening. But life before COVID was so very different. And I did some research and I found that by late 1800s, large cities worldwide were drowning in horse manure because the only way for transportation that was available was using horses, right? So people used to go from one place to another using horses and there was a lot of horse poop. So every city, call it Mumbai or Pune, or maybe these cities did not even have names that time, but all of them were dumped with horse poop. And what is the challenge over here is the horse poop was spreading a lot of diseases. So the challenge over here was there was 1 lakh kilo or 2.5 million pounds of horse poop which was being generated per day. So I'm talking about per day manure that was being collected. And these piles had like 5 billion flies or like, whatever number you want to give it, but there were so many flies because of that around, and which was like basically spreading so many diseases. There was so much of dust, so you can imagine how chaotic it was just because of the horse poops. And this was a challenge that time because this was bringing in unhealthy lifestyle. It was also like spreading a lot of diseases, bronchital diseases and so on. So again, what am I trying to name over here is so this terrible situation was debated at one of the conferences in New York, but no solution was found to it. So the problem over here, what you see is there is a lot of horse poop, and everybody is thinking how can we reduce the horse poop. So either way is you reduce the number of horses alive, or you stop going from one, or stop feeding the horses, but that doesn't solve the problem, right? Because people can't stop going from one place to another, people can't stop feeding their horses, so this problem was going to be there for quite some time. Okay, so after that what came up was best buses and other, like, other vehicles. So what changed, like, what happened in between from those horses to different motor vehicles? What changed was the number of horse poop went down, to a lot of extent, and the reason being, uh, they did not solve for horse poop by reducing the travel from one place to another, or they did not find ways to decompose this manure, or how to bury this manure at some place. What they tried to solve was find an alternative to these horses. How can people transport from one place to another? How can they move from one place to another without actually using horses? And that's how they came up with the idea of vehicles. So was the poop problem solved? Yeah, so the point here was it was not about actually cleaning the horse poop, or it was not about finding ways to dump this horse poop, but the way this actually came up with a solution which was an alternative to horses. So if you define the problem in another way by considering the needs of the society, the timing, the outcome, no more poop, that is the problem solved. And the problem was solved not by figuring out what to do with the poop, but by how can we replace horses with something else? Okay. Can you see the next slide? Yeah. So problems do not exist until we define them. A lot of people could have ignored this problem, saying, hey, you need to live with it because we need to go from one place to another and there's no solution to it. But unless somebody thought it was really a problem, somebody cared to solve for it, that problem never existed. So the first important step is to identify the problems, and that's just a part of problem solving or building solutions. Unless you identify what solution you want to build, that problem was never existing, right? Nobody would have thought of having motor vehicles unless they thought horses were a problem. So ideally, if I were to solve a problem, these are the 5 steps that I would recommend. First, empathize with the users. So what does empathy mean is think from that person's side, what they really feel about the problem. A lot of times we get biased about our own problems. For example, currently the prices of petrol is very, very high. And all of us, all the middle class people, or people who are poor, they might find this as a problem that petrol prices are very high. So does that mean we stop using automobiles these days and go for electric vehicles? Could be a part of the problem, right? Because we are solving for petrol, we are finding an alternative for petrol which is easier to use. So if we would have suggested people stop using vehicles at all, this is not going to solve for the problem. So empathize with the user. Maybe petrol prices are not very high for you as a consumer, but it may be high for someone else. So try to think from users' perspective what they really feel about the problem. So first thing is empathy with the users. Then second is defining the problem. How you define the problem is really, really important. So prices of petrol, if I give you as a statement to solve for, Either way, you think that the prices of petrol is very high and we need to find an alternative to petrol, or the other way is to stop using vehicles at all so that the prices of petrol reduce, or change the government at all, and maybe the other government can solve for this problem. But that's not true. There are other ways to solve for this problem, which I'm going to explain in the coming slides. So, according to the Stanford School of Design Thinking process, you're likely to be familiar with the, this is the Stanford Design Thinking model. Uh, Defining the problem is very important, is what Stanford School says. But I think of this in a different way. I have a difference of opinion. Here's how I can explain it. Consider, coffee beans. Okay, imagine you're building a coffee maker, and you think of all the steps that can help you brew the coffee with the help of fresh coffee seeds, and makes the coffee really taste good. One of the test cases where this machine will fail is it's not able to identify basically which beans are bad. So unless the machine is intelligent enough, or the person who's managing this coffee machine is intelligent enough to understand which coffee beans are not good, they will not be able to build a system which can directly pour as many beans as they want in that coffee machine and brew some amazing coffee. So the problem over here of making coffee automatically with the help of machine without much human intervention will not be solved entirely unless you test the bad coffee and bring in different permutations and combinations over here. So what you could do is define the needs of the problem, define the design problem. So what is the outcome that you're looking at? Who needs this problem to be solved? How can you influence people to use your solution? Because say in case of transportation, people are very comfortable using horses. So how are you going to convince them in an era where people were not familiar with automobiles that, hey, this car is safe, you can take it anywhere as you want. The only thing that you need to do is fill it up with fuel from time to time. What are the constraints? You need to fuel it up from time to time. This car may not go forever and ever as you want, unlike horses, which don't have the authority to stop unless you stop. How much time will you take to build this solution? What are the constraints that you will come across while you are building a solution? Do you have support from the government while you're solving for it? Is the society welcoming the product that you're planning to build? Will they be open to the change that you're planning to bring? What does the society need? How much time will you take to solve this problem? And what your competitors are doing? So I know for a time that a lot of times we feel that our solution is very unique. We don't think about competitors, and doing literature survey is very, very important. A lot of times just writing different algorithms can also be a part of your solution. The reason being, maybe your algorithm works better than someone else's, but for that you need to understand what someone else's algorithm is doing and how you identify yourself differently from the other solutions. Okay, am I making sense to all of you? Are you all enjoying and are you all listening? Okay, cool. So, as I mentioned, thinking about outcomes is what is happening today and how should it be different in the future. So, how you identify the current situation and how do you differentiate it from the future is the first step that you would be looking at. And the outcome is not the solution. So, the horse poop problem that we were talking about, you want to reduce the horse poop, right? But what you're trying to solve is not the horse poop, but what you're looking at is you want to look at a city which is cleaner, which is more healthier to live at, and that's the outcome. You want a city which is healthy. So you're not thinking about outcome over here is replacing horses with automobiles. That's your solution. So there is a big difference between what an outcome is and what a solution is. So identify and make it very, very clear at the start. Second, people problem. A lot of times we often think about, what is the consumer rate, what is the CSAT score, how many people will like this solution. We go for a survey, we take a survey of say 100 people, we go for a poll on Twitter, we circulate Google Forms and try to understand what people want. But that's still a part of people that you're talking to, and those people are very closely associated with you because your survey goes with a limited set of people, or the ones who are connected with each other through certain means. So a lot of times we may have a bias. Example, I may think that traffic is a big problem. That's just because I stay in Bangalore. I do a survey, I ask people in Bangalore, do you want something better as a replacement to roadways? And they'll all say, yeah, traffic is a problem over here. But someone who stays in a rural area will be like, hey, what are you talking about? That's not at all a problem in my area. So we need to think about many people with different personas while we are building these solutions. So what is the problem? What are the issues caused because of the current situation is the first thing. Second is, what is the severity of this problem? If you don't solve, what is the severity? Like, what if people stop buying petrol? How is going to affect the consumer market, to the government, to different, different verticals in the society? How is it going to matter different people? The automobile sector, will it get affected? And you don't have to care for everyone, but think, if you bring an alternative to petrol, how many industries are going to stop? Because ultimately, if these are like very powerful, you need to be very, very smart on how you're going to deal with the different types of people. And challenges may sound interesting at the start, and I don't want to stop you or scare you from solving problems, but also think, how are you going to influence these people to think about an alternative to petrol? And who cares, like, so, for example, you're trying to solve for the petrol problem, but does government really care about its, citizens? Who really cares about this problem? Do the consumers themselves, like, do people like us care, or they're okay to pay for petrol at 100 rupees per liter? A lot of times we may feel people cannot buy this much of, petrol at this price. A lot of people can. So think about those areas as well while you're defining the problem. Okay, any guesses what is this about? I'm sure no guess is going to be wrong. Tesla, okay. Electric cars, EV, electric car, yes, yes, correct. Okay, so for Tesla, the problem of electric car adoption, this is what I'm going to tell you more about. Is, if you think about it, it does not have to be a problem, because Tesla is like a well-identified brand. People trust Elon Musk like anything, and maybe as users we can continue driving say our petrol or diesel driven cars, and we are still happy about it unless the prices are going too high and we are fed up of the prices and we're looking for literally running on gases, CNG and things like that. But that's also pretty costly these days. So yeah, people are easily going to move to, I'm sorry. Okay, so people are already fed up of petrol prices and other things, and they're looking for an alternative. So if Tesla designs a car with a price as similar to say how Nano is for like say 1 lakh rupees, people will jump in to buy that car, and then adoption is not at all difficult. But the problem actually was, what is the range at which this car can drive? Do we have enough of charging stations? Is the performance as good as how petrol or fuel driven motor vehicles could perform at? Those things were a challenge, and the design of the car. People also want their car to look amazing. The design has to be pleasing, and all those things. So these are the real challenges for Tesla. Can they actually provide a solution as good as the fuel-driven cars? But what what did Elon Musk announce is accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's our mission. So a lot of people get associated with it because people want a sustainable living these days. They know that petrol is not a long-term solution. A lot of challenges are coming along the way. So this statement coming from Elon Musk did make a lot of impact. Like we've seen how easily people would move to something like Clubhouse just because Elon Musk said that it's good. So there is a lot of trust associated, but who are we? Who knows us while we are solving for a lot of people? So people may not trust the statements that we make, but that's the case for Tesla. Anyways, coming back to the topic, so what are the needs? What does everyone want? And what does everyone need? What does everyone want and what does everyone need is very, very different. Uh, so people need to go from one place to another, and people want the petrol prices to be affordable. And these two are different things, and we need to identify these things more into detail. Then, this is an interesting use case where the milkshake factory wanted to basically, increase the sale of milkshakes, and how they increased this sale. This is an interesting story. So what they did was they identified when were people actually buying milkshakes, and they found that people are buying milkshakes in the morning time, and especially when they were going to work, they wanted something to chew. So what this company did was it made even more thicker milkshakes so that people can chew it while they are going to work. And that's not something like which is easily swallowable, just like normal milkshake. They added a lot of cream to it and made it thicker. So the sale of milkshakes went higher, and this sales increased by 15%. So when the problem was given that the person wanted to increase the sale of milkshakes, they did not sell milkshakes one on one free, or they did not do the traditional promotional strategy. They improved the product to increase the sales. So people don't want a quarter inch drill, they want a quarter inch hole. So a lot of times what we understand as a need is very, very different from what people actually want. And let me tell you more about it. Or maybe people just want a crack in their wall. What exactly people want? So if I had asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So when Henry Ford, the a little more faster, and then he would have thought of solutions on maybe inventing medicines that can increase the horse capacity, or maybe they would have thought of some other solutions that can just make the horse run faster. But nobody would have thought of designing automobiles, and this is what Henry Ford said. So how will you influence, and what is within your power? Where your solution exactly stands is an intersection between user goals and the business needs. Once you know what the users want and how you bring in the business needs from that, you're going to build an amazing solution. So what this is a famous quote on the internet: if they're giving you something for free, you are the product, and if you are paying for something, then they are the product. So for example, we all use Facebook and other services for free, and why is that? Is because you are giving your data to Facebook, who is using this data for different services, right? So you are the product over there. Alternatively, what if you're buying an email service, then what's that? That is a product that you're paying for. That's a service that you are paying for. Cool. So how will you bring in that area of influence is very, very important. And with great power comes greater responsibility. We all have heard this oftentimes. So, it's just not about designing solutions which solves for the problem. And this is an example of testing cars in US. And what they found was until 2011, female body. What they do during car testing is they build a dummy of human body and try to test it, on different services and different simulation areas. And while they do this simulation until 2011, they were just using male looking dummies. And what they found was a female driver case study was not tested, so not all test cases were designed until that time, and they found that 47% of death rate was higher that time, just because they missed on this testing. 47%, and then they say that women can drive. So the point over here is you have to think about different types of users. This is an image from Kotak Mahindra shade card where they had different shades available, and for brown they just had two color shades, and they were not solving for everything because brown is like chocolate, brown is wood, brown is a shade of skin color as well. And when people were clicking pictures and they wanted to color black and white photos to colored pictures, they were not able to color all humans as they exactly look like, because the color palette was limited and was not thought of well, considering different skin tones. So like I said, with great power comes great responsibility. People were trusting these car testing simulation drives and Kotak Mahindra shade cut, because at that time only limited options were available. So we need to think wisely, considering different types of users, empathize well with them, and build solutions that solves for many. And between your current situation and outcome, what are the constraints? What are the challenges? Maybe we don't have enough of technical understanding while we are trying to solve for the problem. Maybe we don't understand the users well while we are solving the problem. Maybe we don't have enough of resources to solve for the problem. So these all are constraints which may hamper or hinder your solution building. Okay, if the road was as good as that, and you were you told to drive, things look so easy to drive on a straight road. You can drive as fast as you want, right? And nobody would but if you were to think, so if I tell you to drive on a straight road without any constraints, the drive is going to be easy. If I give you a lot of space to build any type of building you want, this is the example of iconic Disney Hall concert, which had so much of space, and that's why they could build something as iconic as this. So when you are thinking about outcomes, Initially, I told you, think about the constraints, but design a solution without thinking about the constraints. Everything can be solved once you are confident about the solution that you're going to build. So believe in your idea, believe in your product, believe in this problem that you're trying to solve for. And you need to define how flexible you're going to be about the resources. Be flexible about the resources. If people are going to if people are ready to help, go beyond the capacity. How go stretch yourselves, the location at which you're working, be flexible to work out of any location. If you're trying to solve for rural areas, be flexible to go there and build those solutions. Few things you need to be rigid about is how you preserve the culture over there. How Be flexible about the technology that you're going to use while you're designing the solution. Just because you like Google doesn't mean you use Google products to solve for the solution, to solve for the problem. You may think of an alternative. Be rigid about the values that are associated to the users. If you're building a solution for a particular society and if they have their own values, you don't have to break those values. Respect those. People may have fear, there might be policies that you need to take care of, and those will remain in place. Those will not, don't expect them to change. They are going to be there, and you need to think of those as one of the most important things while you're designing the problem solution. And understanding constraints is not to shortcutting low hanging fruit. So once you understand the constraint, doesn't mean that you know everything and then you can solve the problem easily. A lot more things will come along the way. You will understand the challenges as only when you start building the product and all those things. And in between all the challenges, you need to think about the timeline. Time can be infinite, but your time is finite, which means that you may start thinking of a problem today and think of launching the solution 10 years from now, but that's not going to help you. You need to be very quick in the industry because there are so many people who are trying to solve same problem, given that the problem is common to many people. So how much time will it take to bring the outcome? How much time can you spend? Right now you're students, tomorrow you'll be working. So how much time do you have? You have your academics to take care of, you have your families to care for. So how much time do you want to spend on that solution? A lot of times you may have other priorities and this problem solving is not that important to you. So if you spend twice as much as time on it, will it have twice the impact? So say when you're trying to launch the solution and you say that instead of launching the solution in 6 months, you launch it in 12 months, will the impact be twice? Think about it. A lot of times we just say taking more time means being more sure about things. But lot of times this comes with a theory of law of diminishing results. The level of awesomeness is achieved with the number of time, the amount of time spent may not be true. Did you actually reach to the end goal just because you spent more time, or you were a little away from the end goal, or were you halfway there? You just need to test your solution with 5 users, even if you're building for billions of users, and take it to the market. There is where you'll do a lot of beta testing, understand if that problem was really meaningful to solve for. There is a Kano model which you can use. It's a Japanese model where features are simply expected by the consumers. If the product doesn't have them, it will be considered to be incomplete or just plain or bad. So which features are important and which features just improve the performance? Accordingly, add features or solutions to your product. Sometimes we focus on adding more and more features just because we feel the experience is going to be good. And yes, that's true. A lot of times people will switch from one solution to another just because it offers better solutions. But at the same time, what are the features that are very important? How do you prioritize your features, and product development is important. And what are attractive? A lot of times just improving the design or adding animations is going to make your product look attractive. but it can bring in a positive reaction from the users and help you retain the audience. So that's equally important. What are the must be features, how the performance can be improved, and how can you make the product look more attractive? All of these contribute to making an awesome solution. And most important part in the end is how you make your solution different from others. Does the presence of the feature make it really different from others? Will that bring new people to your problem, to your solution, is what you need to think about. Competition, what are others doing? Try to do a nice literature survey. When I was working on research projects and startups, we had a dedicated team who was actually working on doing some literature survey, trying to understand what competitors are doing. They used to present their study on a regular basis on what they found others are doing and how we can make ours. And then product managers think about building in or launching features that could make the solution different from others. Problem doesn't exist in a vacuum. So what are the competing priorities and what trade-offs needs to be made? So how you decide on, a lot of chat applications are there. So what are the competing priorities? What would WhatsApp do to compete with Telegram, Slack is very, very important. And which features can be taken lightly, because with that, maybe the user experience does not change as much, or maybe the user may not think of quitting the solution because other things are more important to them. And what are you asking people not to do? So WhatsApp is mostly for informal communications, and they have been very, very rigid about it. A lot of features that we ask or we thought of would be good to have in WhatsApp are not there, because WhatsApp really wants you to make use of it for informal communications. It doesn't have out of office automatic response to it, or it doesn't have a lot of features which Slack would have or which Messenger would have. The reason being, it's actually trying to solve for a specific set of users and not every type of user in different different areas. Convincing other people to care and give you their time and energy is a part of designing the problem. So how will you convince people to use your solution, and convincing them to spend time on your product? So how you convince people to use YouTube when they are working, or how you convince people to basically use Facebook when they already meet their friends in person is a part of designing the problem. So what Facebook offered was sharing pictures with people you meet every day as well. So that is where there is where you convince people 15 years ago to come to Facebook. What will it take to just do X versus why can't we just do X is one part of your problem solution design thinking process. Okay, again, coming back to this picture, this is from New York, and take a look at it. This area is great. A lot of us would look at this picture and see how hard it is to get a cab in New York at Times Square. Some of us see the pain of travelers and the property owners, but Airbnb saw this as a marketplace for opportunities. Some of us saw this as a congested traffic area, but Elon Musk want to build a boring company to solve congestion. And you need to think as a developer that many things your job is to just solve problems, but now you also learn what is important is to define what problems are clearly and thoroughly. So as a developer, your job is just not to build solutions, but defining and designing clear, thorough problems is very, very important. And what you define problems as is thoroughly what the future will look like. So the future is in your hands. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that was not a boring session and you found it useful, and this will definitely help you redesign your problem statements and come up something amazing by the end of this event. I'm open to any questions that you have. In case you'd like to stay in touch with me after this session, I have shared my Twitter handle. Do reach out to me on Twitter, and I'll be happy to see what you build towards the end of Hack NITR session. Okay, over to you, Nikhil. Okay, Vedant, are you there? Oh,
Hi, ma'am. Sorry.
hi.
My internet was just a bit. Thank you so much for this. It was really amazing. We ourselves have actually. I have questions. Like I'm super excited to ask questions if that is okay.
Sure, sure.
So as you were saying about you need to be able to think about the features and prioritize them. We start off with the project and then we get super excited and we just focus more on building just features. We forget about the audience. So what are some metrics that you feel that we should keep in mind while prioritizing these features,
Yeah,
especially on a large project where there are several features and we are developing it on a rollout model or something like that?
yeah, really good question, and thank you for asking. Uh, so while you mentioned the project is, large scale, the scope of the project is very, very big. That's you who have it in your mind that the scale of the project is big, and there is where you keep, delaying the launch of the solution. So, what exactly problem are you trying to solve? So, like I mentioned in my slides, if the problem is to solve for horse hoops, and if you think the project is large scale because building automobiles will take time, then you need to prioritize which features of this automobile are important just to make sure that people are able to drive from one place to another. And then features like speed, AC, and wiper, and these things may come along the way as you proceed with the launch. But first step is going from one place to another, and that's the important feature that you'll be focusing on. Same logic applies to your problem statement as well.
Um, okay, ma'am, I would like to ask one more follow-up question. What if that problem statement is something like where you're trying everything into one platform? Say, for example, there are a bunch of features lying around and it's not really in a one single place. What your product is trying to solve. So, hello?
I don't know if it's just me, but I was not able to hear Harish
I think I'm
clearly.
back.
Yeah, yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, so this internet is fluctuating, it's not really stable. So I was asking, what if that product which you're trying to develop is actually like a one platform for all solutions? Basically, there are a bunch of features lying around, and you just thought that nobody actually integrated and made it all available at one place. That is something which you're trying to build, and yeah.
Yeah, that could be an interesting way to solve a problem because, say, Google Drive, it is a potential solution similar to what you're trying to say, where you can put everything together and is accessible to many users, and that's a solution. Usually, people were able to share files over emails, but all these files were shared on different threads, and it was not easy to access. Instead, why not just create a link and share it with everyone so that they can access it easily? And Drive is a good solution. So, yeah, I mean, or you think about, say, Flutter, which helps you build apps for, so there are different frameworks. Um, but Flutter button something which can help you build apps for multiple platforms, and that's also a solution.
Yeah, okay. I'm okay. That was really great. Thank you for the answer, ma'am. This is
Thank you for
actually
joining the
this
session.
question actually revolves around a project which we're currently developing. That's why I really wanted to ask your opinion about it.
Sure, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Uh, yeah,
Okay, I had one question. Am I audible?
yes, yes, you are audible.
Yeah, so one question I had is so we have WhatsApp in India, we have Telegram, we have Hive. So, what do you think is something specific that WhatsApp did that they did the thing the best? Like we say WhatsApp me, we never say Telegram or Hive me. That's the usual phrase we use. So, was it the right timing, the right audience targeting? What exactly was it that was the most hit platform for instant messaging over, let's say, Hive or Telegram, Viber, or any other thing?
Yeah, so these are like very personal opinions of mine. I guess WhatsApp came to the market before Telegram, or at least it reached the right set of people before Telegram. Either way, they were able to basically capture the right audience at the right time, and that really helped them solve for the problem.
Okay.
And if you look at WhatsApp, it's very easy to use. Like, your parents can use it, your grandparents can use it, your niece and nephews, younger ones can use it. So it's easy to use for all age groups, and that makes it easier. The internet required to use WhatsApp is very less. So if internet consumption was very high, people would have thought of using alternatives. But you saw it takes really less internet. So even if say Facebook had Messenger that time, why people used WhatsApp was you were able to connect with phone numbers. So you don't have to search for people with their names, then connect and then talk to each other. You could talk to people with whose phone numbers you had. Um, Similarly, WhatsApp also helped you share different types of media. So people who are not able to type could share audio files. Um,
Yeah.
so those features were like really meaningful and helped them capture the market at the right time.
Okay, okay, that really is an interesting insight. I had one more question. Can I ask?
Sure, sure, yes.
Yeah, so how do you decide between, we have a problem statement, let's assume. How do you decide between, given that we have got limited resources, whether to build a website out of it or a mobile app out of it? Because from what I have understood recently is that, at least me personally, is that it's easier to have the SEO super awesome in the website, but mobile app is something which is a bit more easier to build because there is less screen ratio dimensions. So there is specific set of screen dimensions that you have. If you go for website, it's like from desktop, tablet, mobile, all kinds of variants. So how do you decide between whether to solve the problem using mobile app or a website?
Or both.
Uh, so whether to decide to go for a website or a mobile app is based on the solution that you're trying to provide. If you think the user is going to use it on a regular basis every day, then they would you prefer to use an app. But if they were to do something like say book flight tickets, then nobody is going to install an app, or people may, and they have brownie points and they need to access it over and over again. But for someone who just needs to book flight tickets once a year or once a month, they would still go for a website because they don't want to be there on it on their phones. And now phones have better storages. But if you think about times, say 5 years before or 7 years from now, phones had very less storage. And that's why people were very skeptical on what type of apps they want to keep on their phones, and what could be solved with a website. SEO is one part of bringing in users to your solution. But if you promote your application well, you can still bring people to a website where all the details about your product are there, and then you take them to a link to download the application. So a website can be there to tell what all your solution is has to offer, and then you redirect people to download the app if you think using the app is more important because people are going to use it on a daily basis. For example, if you are building an application to share reports to your leaders, and the leaders want to check these reports on a regular basis, say on a weekly basis, they don't want to like search links on their phone and then look at these reports. Rather, they prefer something as an app. They open it anytime they are free, and they can see whatever charts that you display. So accordingly, you need to design your solutions.
Yeah, that
Okay.
actually makes a lot of sense. I believe WhatsApp does that. Like WhatsApp has a website and then it redirects to the application.
Yes, correct.
Okay, ma'am. We have got a couple of questions in the question section, so let me address them one by one. So the first question is, should we take the popularity of the present solutions while thinking of a probable alternative?
Yeah, for example, if say Netflix is there and there's like on Amazon Prime and you're trying to build an OTT platform, if there are so many players in the market, what is it that you're providing differently from these platforms is very important. So, for example, there is MX Player who's trying to do similar thing, and that's why they don't. It's not as popular as Netflix or Amazon Prime is, right? Even if design-wise it's good, the product has spent so much of money. What is it that people would choose MX Player over Netflix is important. People are already comfortable with Netflix. People are already comfortable with, say, Amazon Prime. So are you providing something which is even more cheaper, but you're providing same services? How are you going to do that? Just because you say I want to give it for free doesn't really solve for the problem, right? You want to charge your users. So what is it that you are going to provide in your platform, even if it's costlier than Netflix? If you have some unique features that helps users really make Netflix better, they would pay for it, but you need to have that feature in your platform.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that the product which we are trying to develop needs to have a unique feature compared to the other alternatives. About that, some people tend to think that narrowing down the target audience, for example, could be basically a video platform, like YouTube. Say that it's a global platform; everybody uploads videos over there. Let's say that I want to build YouTube just for India, so that I narrow down and add more specifics just to a small community or small crowd. Would that be considered as a unique feature?
Okay, so this is an interesting problem. YouTube helps you upload videos, and you can offer something like share chat, where which is very Indian, and people can talk in their local languages. People are from India only, so able to connect better. But there are so many people over there. But if they are trying to offer similar solutions, I would trust something which is more global, because I can actually dive into more, like say if ShareChat only uploads videos in Hindi, but I like to listen to music which is in English as well. Then I'll again go to YouTube. And if on YouTube I see there are both types of music available, then why would I prefer ShareChat? And there is where your types of users start narrowing down.
Okay, okay. Yeah, ma'am. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. Addressing the next, I hope the question is answered, Asta. And the next question is, can ML be better in mobile or web for some small projects? It's really looks cool and flexible in mobile devices, but it's really a trade-off for computational power.
Yeah, if your solution takes a lot of computational power, then I would recommend you to go for cloud-based solutions, where you can hire some machines virtually and get your solutions run on that, and then on the user side you just display the outcome. And that has nothing to do with running it on mobile or web. It depends on how many machines you hire and how you design the architecture of your solution.
I hope that answers the question, Siddharth Sharma. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the answer. And here we have our final question by Sumit. Sumit asks, should we try to build something keeping in mind more ahead of time or build for the now problem? Okay, this is an interesting one.
Should we try
Interesting,
to?
interesting.
Interesting.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Should we try to build something
Hello,
keeping in mind more ahead of time or build for the problem now? Uh,
hello,
yeah. Can you
ma'am.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Um, your voice is,
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you right now. Yes, ma'am.
yeah,
There was a bit of lag, but it's well and good right now.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Yeah. So the question which is like, should you build solutions ahead of time or considering the problem right now? My answer will be build a solution which is going to exist for a problem which is going to exist for a
Hmm.
longer term. What I mean to say over here is if you design for a problem which is very temporary, the solution will may not be useful after some time. And if you think of a problem which may come in the future, and if that problem never comes, that solution is going to be of no use. So think of the current problem which will be there for a long time and design your solutions accordingly. Did I answer your question well?
So just
Yeah, that was a really good answer. As in, think of a problem statement that will stay for a long time. Like that is a really a nice answer. Like that is enlightening.
Cool. Thank you so much for all the questions. I really enjoyed answering them.
Hello. Ma'am, I have to ask a question. If you can answer one last time, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so as a student or developer myself, and I like participate in hackathons or try to build stuff with my friends. So one of the problems we face quite regularly is that if something a feature comes to our mind, and if we go on trying to implementing, and let's say it's a complex feature, so we spend hell lot of time implementing the feature, and then once we are done, we are very happy in ourselves that we finally achieved the task. But when we show it to our friends or when people actually use it, that like the feature does not come in very handy, or it's not actually very important for the product we build. So how to tackle such things?
Yeah, so user reaction are the true testaments how a large scale of people are going to react to your solution. So take it positively, and just because a few set of people did not like it doesn't mean everybody are not going to like it. Maybe say you're designing an application which helps you design, helps you help students learn something new, and if you're going to show this application to someone who's really good at programming, that person may not be able to connect to the solution that you're trying to build. And if the reaction is negative from that type of person, take it in a positive manner. And if the reaction comes from a group of people who are facing challenges and learning something new, and the reaction has potential, so ask people what did they not like about your solution, what exactly they did not appreciate, and what could be better, what exactly they would like you to solve with the solution you showed to them, and accordingly design the problem solution.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I suppose Vedant that answered you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I got the insight of what
Thank you so much for joining. Do you want to take more questions? Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks all, and good luck with the solution building. And I'll be excited to see what you build at the end of this, awesome event that all of you have planned.
Thank you so much
thank
for
you, ma'am.
joining, even when being on a vacation. Like that really means a lot to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye bye.
Bye.